Carolina, and this is my Sociology 201 final on environmental degradation and climate change. Okay, so the first topic I want to talk about is deforestation and how it's built on capitalism, and many of Earth's forests are not protected from deforestation, which is very bad because in deforestation, all of the CO2 that is collected by trees actually gets released back into the atmosphere, and less it makes it so that there's less oxygen in the air, which is bad for people and animals, and it is destroying our rainforests, especially the Amazon, which produces much of America's oxygen and the world's oxygen. And about 30% of the Amazon has already been cut down, and a fourth of the CO2 that it captures has not been captured because of the deforestation that is happening in the Amazon. And in South America, the marketization for beef boomed, which caused much of the deforestation to happen in South America to make room for farmland for these cows to graze and release methane, which is causing pollution, which I will talk about in the next slide. And this is a pressing issue because we need the Amazon for the world to continue to have steady amounts of oxygen. And yeah, down here is just how much it's been cut down already since the 1990s. The next slide I'm talking about is fossil fuels. And if you don't know what fossil fuels are, they are your coal, oil, and natural gases that are naturally made. However, burning them can give us energy, but unfortunately they are non-renewable, meaning that once they're used, there's no way to reuse them, I guess, or use them again. And the U.S. actually uses a lot of the world's fossil fuels. They use about a quarter of them, with us only having about 5% of the total global population. And 81% of the energy that we use in the U.S. is fossil fuels. So even though we use a fourth of all the energy around the world, oh, never mind, I'm getting off into different. However, the need for fossil fuels greatly changed our landscapes because people are finding new ways to get these fossil fuels, and the more efficiently that we can get them, the more destructive they are to the environment. As, for example, the oil rig off the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, about 40 miles out, in 2010 had an explosion which caused mass spilling of oil to go into the Gulf, which caused many repercussions for Mexico, and the touristy areas really didn't do well financially because of this loss of tourism due to this massive oil spill, and fishing also was impacted, and the wildlife in the area especially was impacted. And fossil fuel emissions are really what is polluting the air and causing deterioration of our ozone layer. The next slide I want to talk about is overconsumption and how it is really, really just not great. And overconsumption really only happens in a couple of countries. America is the worst, obviously, and places in Europe and Canada as well, because they're core countries, meaning that they have the resources to overconsume. Yes, and the peripheral countries support this issue in America because places such as Mexico are counterparts. America buys out their land to grow more food, and that food is being processed and shipped back to the U.S. Even though there are foreign workers and it is from a foreign place, we can do it cheaper there. They can make more money than they would make in their country, ultimately causing America to come out on top with power. Now this is due to a long time ago luxury items such as beef as I mentioned in the last slide, beef and sugar, they became marketable, which made accessibility increase substantially. In the United States and Britain, the United States really was marketed beef, and we have a lot of farms in South America with cows, and in Britain they really like sugar, obviously because of tea and crumpet. And capitalism is the act of infinite economic growth, which honestly is fueled by overconsumption. However, the land and the environment really doesn't account for that with the fixed number of fossil fuels that our land holds. And yes, grocery store corporations are making this issue worse and worse every year by expanding and adding new stores and filling shelves like these, as you can see. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is pollution, because this is really what's driving our climate change, and the industrialization is when air pollution really started to take effect, and what happens is that the emissions from the fossil fuels cause a greenhouse gas effect, which deteriorates the air we breathe and the ozone layer, of course, which can lead to hotter summers, more fluctuations in temperatures, environmental disasters such as like wildfires, floods, droughts, heat waves. All of that can be caused by disruption to our ozone layer as we get less temperate climates. And countries with the worst air quality are as follows: Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, and China. And just to have a few examples of things that we get from Bangladesh, we get a lot of clothing brands such as Gap, Calvin Klein, and H&M. And from Pakistan, we get a lot of our processed foods, pharmaceuticals, and tobacco. From India, we actually don't really get a lot of stuff from India. They don't actually make many things. However, in India, it is the most populated country in the world. So think of China, how it is populated quite greatly. China is actually 3 times bigger than India, and India still has another 16.7% of the population. 16 point, yeah, yeah, okay. Anyways, but India is small and packed, meaning that pollution is going to be prevalent. And the last thing I want to talk about is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, how it is caused by the North Pacific Gyre, meaning all that moving water that is causing different climates around is fueling and making all these microplastics into one just big garbage pile in the middle of the ocean that is impossible for us to remove. And all of this garbage here that we see really isn't the issue. It's all of the plastic that's in the water that's harming the fish. This is an issue, as yes, it doesn't look great and it is still polluting our waters, but it's once this garbage gets into the water, gets flown deep down and never to see the light of day again and not to decompose, because plastic does not decompose very fast. Neither does things like metal and scrap pieces that can really injure fish. Well, anyways, okay, capitalism. So capitalism it's really really not good for the environment. It is good for America as we can just keep growing, but the earth will really reap those effects as there is not enough resources and we will soon run out. I think we are already starting to see that with how prices of things are going up so much that it's really not um, equitable to live off of a minimum wage job anymore. Now, the reason for inequalities among countries is that companies and corporations in those core countries are buying more and more land from peripheral countries for farming, and this is causing climate change and is the foundation for deforestation. capitalism does not really care about the environment. It just wants money. So uh, it is capitalism is run by the cutting down of forests, burning of fossil fuels, and making of goods. Capitalism has zero benefit to the environment, as I said earlier. However, the people in power don't really care about clean air; they just want more money. And uh, yeah, I think that's enough said about capitalism. Now, what I really want my point to come across is that this issue is incredibly urgent, and that even a couple more degrees different in fluctuation will cause major um, temperature fluctuations, which can be very bad for plants and animals, and can also ultimately cause many extinctions to happen, which would lower our diversity, which would just cause a chain reaction of terrible events. The more emissions released, the harder it will be to reverse or stop the effects of climate change. Even if the Earth raised another 1.5 degrees Celsius globally, the 70% of the coral reefs that are dying now would increase to 99%, and the ocean level would rise by a whole meter. We would have iceless summers on the poles, and there would be a rise in mosquitoes, wildfire seasons would lengthen, hurricanes would worsen, which would cause more and more economic crisis. Now, we can still help the planet if emissions are reduced by 7.6% by 2030. This will prevent further warming of the planet, and I wanted to really emphasize that people have made this climate issue and that people will need to be the ones to fix it, as it will not fix itself if we do not do anything to help. This is my bibliography slide. Thank you for listening to my final presentation for the sociology class.